They were madly in love. The kind of love that makes you lose sleep, lose friends, and eventually lose your mind. But on their honeymoon, something shifted. And when it was over, one of them would never come back. This is not just a love story, it's a warning. Clara Bennett had never believed in love at first sight, until she met James Holloway. It was a rainy Tuesday in Boston. She was on her lunch break, sitting in a cafe with a half-eaten sandwich and a novel she wasn't really reading. That's when James walked in, tall, sharp-jawed, and dressed in a charcoal suit that looked like it belonged in a fashion magazine. His smile wasn't the kind you saw every day. It was slow, deliberate, dangerous. He didn't just order coffee, he ordered her attention, and he got it. They talked for less than 10 minutes, but by the time she left, she already knew two things. He would call her. She would say yes. From the start, James was intense. He didn't just send flowers, he filled her apartment with them. He didn't just take her to dinner, he flew her to New York for the weekend. Clara's friends warned her it was too fast. Her mother said, "Darling, passion is lovely, but it can also burn you alive." Clara laughed it off. She wasn't afraid of the fire. She was addicted to it. Within 6 months, James proposed. Not in a restaurant, not at home, but on the edge of a cliff in Santorini, with the sea crashing below them. Clara didn't think twice. She said yes. They married in the fall. And for their honeymoon, James had planned something different. Instead of a tropical beach, they flew to a remote mountain lodge in the Adirondacks. James said he wanted privacy. It was beautiful, but there was something about it, how quiet it was, how the wind seemed to howl at night, that made Clara feel uneasy. Still, she pushed the thought away. Love was about trust, wasn't it? On their second night, James lit a fire, poured them wine, and leaned in close. His voice was low, almost too low to hear. "Do you believe a person can love someone so much, they'd rather kill them than let them go?" Clara laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But James didn't laugh back. His eyes stayed locked on hers. The next morning, Clara woke to find James wasn't in bed. She called for him, but there was no answer. When she finally found him, he was outside, chopping wood in the freezing cold, muttering something she couldn't make out. That night at dinner, he started asking strange questions. "If I died, would you remarry? If you died, should I?" "James, why are you talking like this?" she asked. He just smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "If you're still watching right now, you're not going to believe what happens next. And trust me, you're going to want to see tune on this channel as we serve more interesting storytelling. So hit subscribe, give this video a like, and share it with someone who thinks they know what love looks like. On their 5th night, a blizzard rolled in. The snow came down in sheets, covering the windows. The wind rattled the cabin like it wanted in. The power went out around 8 p.m., plunging the place into darkness except for the fire. James poured Clara more wine. Too much wine. Her head felt heavy, her eyelids slow. She remembers, vaguely, James carrying her to bed. His voice in her ear. "I'll never let you leave me." When she woke up, her wrists were tied to the bed frame. The room was dim. The fire had burned low. James was sitting in the corner, watching her, smiling. "You don't understand, Clara," he said softly. "We're perfect. And perfect things can't be shared." Her heart slammed against her ribs. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "James, please." He stood up slowly, reaching into his pocket. It wasn't a gun. It wasn't a knife. It was a wedding photo, the one taken just hours after they said, "I do." He placed it on her chest, his fingers lingering. "This is how I'll always remember you." And then, she heard it. A knock at the cabin door. It was slow, measured. 3 knocks. Then silence. Clara's heart leapt. She tried to scream, but the gag James had tied in her mouth muffled her voice. James didn't move right away. He stood still, listening. "Stay quiet," he whispered without looking at her. Then he walked to the door and cracked it open just enough to see outside. From the bed, Clara could only make out a deep male voice. "Evening. Storm's getting bad. Just checking on folks." It was the lodge caretaker. She'd met him once on the first day. A gruff, older man named Henry. James opened the door wider, but his body blocked the view into the cabin. "We're fine, Henry. Appreciate it. You sure? Power's out all over. Got extra lanterns in the truck." James smiled, too pleasantly. "No need. We're set." For a moment, Henry didn't answer. Then, "All right then, good night." The door closed. The footsteps crunched away in the snow. Clara felt the last shred of hope sink into the dark. When James returned, he untied the gag but left her wrists bound. "You're probably thinking Henry could save you," he said. "But that's the thing, Clara. Nobody saves anyone. In the end, it's just you, and the person who loves you enough to keep you." His logic was twisted, but the way he said it, calm, certain, made her skin crawl. That night, she pretended to fall asleep. Hours later, when his breathing deepened beside her, she began working at the knots with her teeth, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might wake him. The rope loosened enough for her to slip one wrist free. She slid out of bed, moving slowly toward the front door, the floorboards creaking under her bare feet. She was 3 steps from the handle when she heard his voice, right behind her. "Going somewhere, Mrs. Holloway?" He was wide awake, smiling again. "If you're still here, you're invested in this nightmare, and trust me, it's only getting worse." Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next video and drop a comment. What would you do if you were Clara? Fight, or play along? The next morning, James acted like nothing had happened. He cooked breakfast, humming to himself, sliding a plate of eggs in front of her. "Eat," he said gently. "We've got a big day." When she asked what he meant, he only said, "Memories." He led her outside into the blinding snow. They hiked for almost an hour until they reached a frozen lake. In the middle of it was a small wooden boat. James rowed them to the center, the sound of the oars echoing in the cold air. From his coat, he pulled out a small box. Clara thought for one fleeting second it was a gift. It wasn't. Inside was a vial, glass, sealed with a cork. The liquid inside was dark red. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. Clara shook her head. "It's love, Clara. In its purest form. And when we drink it, we'll be bound forever." She realized then, it wasn't wine. It was blood. That night, the wind howled again. Clara lay awake, pretending to be asleep, when she heard it, footsteps crunching outside. Not Henry's slow, heavy steps. These were faster, lighter. Through the crack in the curtains, she saw a shadow moving across the snow. Suddenly, a sharp knock rattled the door, urgent this time. James froze mid-sentence. He walked to the door, but this time, before he could open it, a voice called out, "Clara, are you in there?" Her blood ran cold. She recognized that voice. It was Ethan, her ex-fiancé. James opened the door slowly, leaning against the frame like he'd been expecting Ethan all along. "Well," James said, smiling faintly. "You finally made it." Ethan stepped inside, shaking snow from his coat, his eyes darting around the cabin until they landed on Clara. His face twisted in horror. "Clara, what the hell?" James raised a hand. "Before you say anything, Ethan, you should know, she's been lying to both of us." Clara's heart thudded. "James, don't." But James kept going. "She told me you were out of the picture. She told you she was over me. But the truth? She wanted us both. And now she has us both." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" James walked to the table and set out 3 wine glasses. "Tonight," he said, "we end the games. No more lies, no more choosing. We all drink together, and we're bound forever. One love. 3 hearts." The liquid in the bottle was the same dark red Clara had seen at the lake. "It's blood," she whispered to Ethan. Ethan's jaw tightened. "We're leaving. Now." But James shook his head. "The storm says otherwise. Roads are gone. You have nowhere to go, Ethan. Neither of you do. Please, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and tell me in the comments." James poured the blood into the glasses, sliding one to Clara, one to Ethan, and keeping one for himself. "Drink," he said. Clara's hands trembled. She looked at Ethan, trying to read his eyes. He gave the smallest shake of his head. "No," Ethan said firmly. James's smile vanished. The warmth dropped from his voice. "Then you'll both die here. Together." He reached into his coat. Clara braced for a weapon, but instead, he pulled out a small silver dagger. "If you won't drink it, I'll spill it myself." Ethan lunged, grabbing James's wrist. The two men crashed into the table, sending the glasses shattering across the floor. The fire roared in the background, shadows flickering against the walls. Clara ran for the door, but it was bolted from the inside. She fumbled at the latch, her hands slick with sweat, when she heard a choking gasp. She turned. James had Ethan in a chokehold, the dagger pressed to his throat. "Clara!" Ethan shouted, struggling. "Go!" She hesitated, frozen between saving him and saving herself. Then, without warning, Ethan slammed his elbow into James's ribs. The dagger slipped from James's hand, clattering across the floor. Clara snatched it up. For a moment, James just looked at her. Not angry, not afraid, just sad. "I told you," he whispered. "If I can't have you, no one can." He lunged. Clara didn't think, she reacted. The dagger went in deep. His eyes widened, his mouth opening as if to speak. But no words came. James collapsed at her feet, blood pooling on the wooden floor. Ethan grabbed her hand, and together they forced the door open against the wind. The snow stung their faces as they stumbled into the night, the storm swallowing the cabin behind them. By dawn, they'd made it to the main road, where Henry, the caretaker, found them and drove them to safety. But Clara never forgot James's last words, or the look in his eyes. Weeks later, when the police searched the cabin, they found something chilling. A chest under the bed, filled with women's jewelry, photographs, and wedding rings. None of them belonged to Clara. James had been here before. Many times. And every time, it ended the same way.